Oh no, a few of the characters aren't voiced. Well, that's fine, since I bet the animation will still be good. Is that PowerPoint? By the way, this video shall contain spoilers for Amphoreus. We have arrived in Amphoreus, and Honkai Star Rail is offering a thrilling adventure for our nameless. Now, I love Greek mythology, and I'm really excited for this one, and I expected to find hype. From Finon's heroic performance, Mighty's exhilarating entrance, and Aglaya's auspicious accent. However, all I found on the web is that people are complaining about Star Rail's storytelling, criticisms about characters yapping too much, expositions after expositions about the lore that made it feel like a guided tour in a museum. Oh, so that's why she has British accent. And on top of that, the poor animation is being called out by a lot of fans. So are they right though, or is this just another drama from nitpicky gacha gamers? Now, as someone who finished the story, there's some truth in these criticisms. But it doesn't mean that Amphoreus was boring. In fact, it is one of the strongest stories and world building I've experienced from Star Rail. But let me be clear first. Before you go and call me an HSR glazer, story and storytelling are two different sides of the same coin. Story is the content, the events, the characters, while storytelling is the delivery. It is how the story is communicated to an audience. Star Rail's 3.0 patch is really good, with enticing mythological themes, proper character development, and lore that made it feel like an epic. But storytelling-wise, it really needs improvements. And the main culprit for ruining HSR's narrative direction is their poor animation, or sometimes the lack thereof. Have you heard of the phrase show and don't tell? HSR storytelling suffered from it dearly. Such as when they are explaining the lore of Amphoreus, there's more dialogue that is coming out from characters rather than actually showing what was happening. Now, won't it be better that while they are telling the story about how the 12 Titans created Amphoreus, we are being shown images of it? Instead of this holographic butterfly that sounded like the teacher who loves failing their students. And case in point, they actually had a whole trailer about their lore. So why not just insert some of those assets while this interesting lore dialogue is playing out? Now, while this whole butterfly thing was actually meant as a joke, since if you got bored of it, they will play a Nick Jr. version of the lore, it doesn't help their intent to tell their story. Now, does this imply that HoYoverse aren't competent enough to animate their characters for better storytelling? No, especially since Zenless Zone Zero exists, and the animation in that game can be used for cakes because they are smooth as butter. Oh, that explains the cakes. And that is where ZZZ ultimately beats HSR. So why can't just Star Rail implement the animation that Zenless has? Are they too lazy and can't be bothered with improving their animation because they are already making millions from its loyal player base? Well, there's actually a lot of valid reasons why Star Rail is not able to do those things. But that doesn't excuse their lack of improvement. Hence why we have this poor animation that is ruining Star Rail's epic story about Amphoreus. But before we dive deeper into that though, if you want the Herta to magic your pools, then like this video and join Otaku Defined for more Star Rail content. Now, why Star Rail currently have this animation problem while other HoYo games like ZZZ don't? There has been a lot of comparisons made in social media displaying the huge difference in animation between the two games. That actually helped me collect my thoughts more and create this video. From walking animations between Rina's floating run and Black Swan who looks like she saw Acheron, expressive animations from Harumasa's cunning yet charming excuses, to HSR characters' general way of displaying apathy. One of the major reasons for the difference in animation is that their genres are polar opposites. Zenless is an action game, where its dev team focused on making every character livelier with each action, giving them unique animations for moves like how Lucy stops and goes. And this is even applied in their overworld, where there's proper physics in place, displaying their absolute commitment. While Star Rail is a turn-based game, they focus more on properly displaying their characters in the turn spot and making animations based on their traces. Running animations are their second priority, hence why Star Rail characters are sharing it, and it even defaults to their base model, which also explains why they have similar animations for each expressions. In other words, they are reusing assets. Sure, this is an effective way to cut costs and time, especially since HSR is a live service game, and they are operating in a strict schedule to pump out content on an almost monthly basis. They might have perceived that as long as the characters look great in battle, it won't matter how they are animated when outside of it. And that's the biggest thing that they overlooked when they made the game. Star Rail was developed with that as a core element for their characters, while Zenless had the opportunity to see how they can improve their characters and work with that. Simply put, the reason why ZZZ is able to do this stairs physics and HSR cannot is based on how their game was built. Yes, both games use the same engine, but changing how they work is another thing. It's a common misunderstanding that just because a game was made in the same engine does not mean that both games are as versatile as the other. Now, the disparity in how Unity games look comes from a combination of the engine's version, rendering pipeline, art direction, developer skill, and the resources behind the game. So it's no wonder that Zenless animation physics would look better than HSR, because it was tweaked differently and used updated assets and textures. The devs of Star Rail cannot simply copy and paste what Zenless did. However, it doesn't mean that HSR can't improve their animation. Well, yes, it will obviously look different than Zenless, but at the very least, we won't be seeing the same expressions and walking cycles. In fact, HSR is actually slowly applying these changes. Now, these are minuscule things. Just look at Tribi. Yes, she's adorable and must be protected. But you can also notice the improved hair physics as well as the livelier texture. MIDIs and ratios sheer difference in muscle definition. My prince, you're huge. HSR is trying to improve their character assets, and this actually guarantees us that while we won't get Zenless's fluid physics, we are still bound to see them applying more dynamic animation. Maybe future characters can even get their own walking cycles. Maybe not all of them will have the same animated expressions, but again, we won't see that for at least 6 months, since the dev team are more likely pressed for time to finish each story arc. And remember, Amphoreus is going to take the whole 3.x of HSR. Thus, the crucial question is, are we players going to be okay with seeing 3 to 4 story patches with the same dull animation? Well, thankfully, there's actually a quicker way to solve this whole Star Rail animation drama. We can go to the CG route. In the latest version, we only had a few CG stills, and they are darn beautiful. And yet, we had around 7 to 8 of this, and this is the thing that HRR fans were complaining about. You can most certainly say that this is the biggest band-aid solution that they applied for the lack of animation. So instead of this boring displays, why not draw a CG where it actually portrays the description, with Black Swan actually checking March's condition? Then while looking at the CG, have them do the whole conversation of March being sick. In that way, we don't have to sit through and look at the not so dynamic animations. And it's not just CGs or stills that they can do. Like for example, while the characters are talking, why not have them walk around the majestic bats of Okama? In that way, we are getting a dynamic scene while the characters are bombing us with lore. Simply put, the way HSR can immediately fix this whole lack of animation drama is to diversify how the story is being presented. Again, looking back at Zenless Zone Zero, they utilized different styles of storytelling, from the use of extremely well 3D animated cutscenes, then a comic book which I would love to read if it exists, please miHoYo. After that, we have their model BN style with each character having their own animation. And lastly is their most static one with no voices. If Zenless Zone Zero only used 1 or 2 of this, people would get sick of their storytelling. Now, Star Rail does have various storytelling styles, from rendered cutscenes, CG, stills, their normal dialogue, and the screen of death boredom. But the problem is, they are far apart from each other, with this style taking a huge amount of space in between the exciting rendered cutscenes and beautiful artworks. So Star Rail, for the lack of a better character animated expression, they can instead shower more stills or CGs and walking dialogue. In that way, players who choose to sit through a whole 10-hour campaign would not feel like they are slogging through each word. Because in all honesty, I love the story and lore of Amphoreus, and I was able to appreciate it because I actually took breaks between certain parts. But not all players would be like me. And that is the key point there. Millions are playing your game, so there are bound to be major differences in tastes. While I can see through thousands of words of expositions, others will call me a pretentious prick. Players chose this game because they want to feel like the Nameless, trailblazing in a world full of wonders, not stare at their screen reading repeated exposition. There's a reason why they're holding a controller and not a book. Star Rail has been presented as this amazing game that offers an epic story, and it rightfully deserves a delivery that can entice everyone, like finance apps. Anyway, what do you think can help Star Rail to improve their storytelling and lack of dynamic animations? I actually fancy the idea of them trying to mimic Persona's style of animated portraits, because in their gacha game P5X, this made for an engaging story. Speaking of which, why is it taking so long for Persona 5 The Phantom X to release globally? Well, if you're curious about that, then check this video out. Join Otaku Define for more gacha games yapping. This is Mav, and stay awesome my Trailblazers!